All right, well, welcome everybody to the training that we're hosting on early signs of psychosis in youth. We're really happy to have Jocelyn Ogle come and present for us. Jocelyn has 5+ years history working with at-risk youth in various settings, including emergency shelters, transitional living programs, schools, and group homes. She graduated from SOU with a degree in clinical mental health counseling. She's been working with the EASA program at Jackson County Mental Health for almost 2 years, and she also has training expertise in adventure therapy, which is really cool, and I'd love to learn more about that. And with that, I know Jocelyn has a lot of great information to share with us, so I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to her. I did want to say that questions are invited, so if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or pop it in the chat, and I'll be keeping an eye on the chat as we go, so you don't have to save them until the end. All right, and take it away, Jocelyn.
Alrighty, thanks everyone. I'm just going to get my PowerPoint up and running here. All right. Everyone can see my PowerPoint? Yeah, cool. All right. Thanks for having me. Like Erin so gratefully had me today to be here to talk about Early Assessment and Support Alliance, or the EASA program here at Jackson County Mental Health, and early psychosis, and kind of how you guys can help as school liaisons, teachers, counselors, and whatever roles that you guys have at the schools working with our youth. So feel free to interrupt at any time, ask questions as we get going, and we'll just jump right in. So I am the screener and therapist for the EASA program here at Jackson County, and part of my role is to do community education and also be kind of like the frontline person that people engage with when they do referrals. So I'm often the one reaching out, giving people a call, talking to them about what they're noticing, the concerns that they're having, and then working through the screening and assessment process. And then after the fact, when a person comes in, I do a lot of the therapy involved with the EASA program as well. So what we're going to hop into is we're going to talk about what EASA is. Then we're going to talk about psychosis specifically and like what that looks like. And we'll also talk about how EASA helps, and then what your role is in this whole process. So EASA is a first episode psychosis program. So we provide information and support to young people experiencing symptoms of psychosis for the very first time. And we are part of a larger community. The EASAcommunity.org is a community of people that exist throughout the state. So EASA is a program that exists in every county of Oregon, which is super cool. So no matter what county you're in, there is an EASA program. And so you can get support for a young person, even if they're moving counties, or if they're like graduating from your high school and moving to another county, maybe to go to like OSU, or something like that. You can refer them to that county's EASA program. So that's super cool. And one of the great things about EASA is that we are a transdisciplinary team, which means that we have people on our team who have a variety of backgrounds to support the young person, and do a lot of different supports, whether that's employment, therapy, psychiatry, and I'll kind of get into more of that later.
Find a better location.
So EASA was first developed because there was some research that was being done about the duration of untreated psychosis, and that they found that the longer the duration of untreated psychosis, the worse outcomes were happening. And so there was research that was being conducted that showed that the current average was about 72 weeks of people experiencing psychosis and not being treated for it. And so that was pretty awful. And so EASA stepped in at about 2008. They started the first EASA program up near the Portland area, and they began doing EASA, doing the first episode psychosis program. And so they really wanted to change that trajectory to look something more like this, where instead of seeing that really big dip into that first episode of functioning or like lack of functioning, that instead with the early identification and intervention, we really see maybe a small dip and then kind of a slow, gradual increase back up to where they were before. And so that is why EASA was developed. And it's been shown, the research has been shown that this is a really effective method to treating psychosis. So let's talk a little bit about like what exactly is psychosis. So 3 in 100 people will actually experience psychosis in their lifetime. This is actually pretty common. So as common as type 1 diabetes. So it's a lot more common than maybe most people would think. And psychosis exists on a spectrum. So it could be, like something as simple as like you feel your phone ringing in your pocket, but it's not ringing in your pocket. Like that's not psychosis, but it's like on the spectrum of like human experiences of things that happen, where it's like you're experiencing something that's not actually happening. So your body's kind of creating this response of maybe it's stress, maybe it's something else, and so our brain kind of creates this perceptual experience. I explained this to one of my clients the other day. I was like trying to explain this human experience spectrum of like there's this mailbox on the way to my house, and especially in the dark, for some reason, we come around this corner driving home, and the mailbox is on the left. And at night, especially, every time I drive past this mailbox, I think it's a person, and it's not a person; it's a mailbox. And that's just another example of how like psychosis is like just this it's part of the human experience. It's not this crazy thing that happens. It's everyone kind of has these strange perceptual experiences, and sometimes it's completely normal, and sometimes it exists as part of a mental health disorder. And so part of our job is to determine what's really going on. And so, as we talk about psychosis, there's a lot of reasons why people have psychosis. And one thing we see a lot of is genetic vulnerability. So, when people have a family history of psychosis, we generally see a higher risk for young people to be experiencing various forms of psychosis. Additionally, medical conditions, including like epilepsy, Wilson's disease, even diabetes can cause psychosis. So some of the medications that people are on for these medical conditions can also be a factor for psychotic-like features. And then drugs, specifically marijuana, is a big one in our valley, methamphetamine, and then, like I mentioned before, some prescribed medications as well. We see actually a lot of trauma, and trauma can cause psychotic-like features as well. sensory deprivation, like if anyone's been sleep deprived before, and thought they saw something or heard something that wasn't there. I've been there. And that's definitely a reason for psychosis. And then mood disorders as well. So like major depression can have psychotic features, so can anxiety, and then bipolar disorder can come with psychotic features as well. So then that brings me down to the 1 in 100 that will actually go on to develop schizophrenia. And that this is the number where EASA really focuses on. So EASA's priority or main focus is for the 1 in 100 people who are actually going on to develop a primary thought disorder. Things that are going to be schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, bipolar 1 with psychotic features. Those are going to be kind of the three big diagnoses that EASA is really focusing on. And schizophrenia is about as common as people with red hair. So also not super rare. I like to provide some context to that so that we understand like how frequently you might see someone in the community with a diagnosis such as schizophrenia. Symptoms of psychosis are usually divided into two sections, positive and negative. The way we describe these is kind of like math. So positive meaning that we're adding something to the human experience, and negative meaning we're taking away something from the human experience. So we're not talking about positive meaning good, and we're not talking about negative meaning bad. So keep that in mind as I talk about kind of positive and negative. So some examples of positive symptoms include hallucinations. These can be auditory, these can be visual, they can also be tactile, and olfactory, so smell, and sometimes taste even as well. Delusions, that's also some like really strong held beliefs that maybe are pretty out there and not easily dissuaded from. Like you cannot argue with them. They're pretty really like really strong held, and you cannot like argue any sort of facts against them. Speech and thought disorders, so kind of really struggling with being able to speak. Sometimes there's thought blocking, or basically being when you're in the middle of a sentence, just stopping and not being able to finish your sentence, things like that, or being mute. That can also come with psychotic disorders. And then abnormal movements and behaviors. Sometimes there's like posturing or like grimacing in the face, things of that nature. And then negative symptoms. So again, we're taking away something from the human experience. So mood symptoms like depression, suicidal ideation, sometimes anxiety. Actually, a lot of times there's anxiety present with psychosis. Flat affect or a lack of facial expressions, inability to maintain mental focus, restriction of speech, which kind of goes along with that speech and thought disorder, and especially kind of that the inability to experience pleasure and maintain social contacts. So this is typically the progression of psychosis that we see, where we typically see cognitive deficits happening first. This is going to be things like working memory, verbal processing, and executive functioning. So this is going to be things like suddenly a student maybe gets lost walking to class or going to school, where they normally don't. They know exactly where they're going. Normally. So all of a sudden, why are we lost? Why are we confused all of a sudden? Or why are we struggling to follow directions, very simple directions? So this is something new that we haven't noticed before in this student. That's going to start going first when we are developing a psychotic disorder. And then we start noticing affect changes. These are going to be your negative symptoms that we talked about earlier. So flat affect, lack of facial expressions, possible depression, anxiety, and things of that nature. And then we start noticing social isolation, where we're withdrawing from friends and family. Maybe we're even withdrawing from school, maybe not showing up regularly, or really not wanting to attend classes, etc. This is also the same point in time where we see an increase in positive symptoms. So it makes a lot of sense if a student is experiencing like hallucinations, or delusions, and they're feeling really scared or confused about like what's going on in their brain, and all of a sudden they don't know who to trust, and maybe they're feeling embarrassed even. They start to withdraw because they don't feel like they can trust anyone. They don't feel like they want to tell anyone what's going on because they're embarrassed. So this makes a lot of sense about the social withdrawal. And then oftentimes, if we can't catch someone around this time period, we start to see a school and work failure, where we're like starting to fail classes, or if the young person is out of school and just working, we're noticing like missing work completely, not showing up, maybe they got fired, etc. And so we really want to catch people in that 2 and 3. It's really difficult to catch people at 1, where they're just having the cognitive deficits, because there's so many reasons why someone may be experiencing cognitive changes, especially at such a young age, in adolescence, when there's just a lot of developmental changes going on as well. So oftentimes we're seeing teachers, parents, or other support systems reaching out to us around that affect change and social isolation change. And that's when we start getting involved, is usually around that time period. And so then hopefully we can start avoiding any social or any school or work failures, and get involved and help the young person with that. I want to talk a little bit about marijuana, because this is a super prevalent thing in Oregon, but also with our young people, and what we're seeing in our EASA program is that we're getting a lot of young people coming into our program experiencing psychosis for the very first time after using marijuana. So I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what we're noticing. First, I want to note that it's correlational and not causal, meaning that the studies are showing that cannabis alone does not cause psychosis. Instead, there's a lot of other reasons, a lot of other components that combine to cause someone to develop psychotic symptoms. And that includes genetic vulnerability. So if someone has a family history of schizophrenia or psychosis, and then they choose to smoke marijuana, there's a potential that they could then trigger that genetic vulnerability piece, and then develop a psychotic disorder. It is also super important for our young people to know the difference between THC and CBD, specifically their ratio. I'm going to jump ahead to this next slide real quick, because what we've seen is that the distribution of potency in CBD or in THC has increased significantly since 1995. So it was about 30% THC in most marijuana in 1995. And this is even about 10 years old. This goes to 2014. We were hitting 90%. And I was just doing a presentation with some police officers a couple weeks ago, and they said that the potency is closer to 93% at this point in 2024. And so the potency is a super important piece for young people to understand, because the higher potency THC puts them at a higher risk for developing psychosis, especially at a younger age. So if we're going to be talking about harm reduction strategies with our young people, we can be telling them that, if you're going to choose to use marijuana, cool. Can we use a lower potency marijuana for now until your brain has had a chance to develop until you're 25, 26? Then, do what you want. But right now, your brain's so vulnerable that using 90% THC is super dangerous. And you could potentially trigger something in your brain that you really don't want to trigger. So that's a conversation that we can all start having with our people that we work with, especially because it's a huge thing that we're noticing in our program. Same thing with age of first use. Again, so harm reduction strategies, like, is it possible that you could wait till after you're 18? Can you wait till after you're 25? Can you use CBD instead? So again, all of those harm reduction strategies to really try and educate our young people about the dangers of marijuana, specifically with psychosis. All right. Hopping into how EASA helps. So I'm going to take a minute and let you guys read this. Is from an EASA graduate about kind of what they felt like EASA did to help them. So I'll give you a second. So yeah, it's just a really cool little blurb from one of our EASA graduates about how EASA changed their career or their track to pursue career in the future that they wanted. And so that just kind of gives us hope that, we're doing something right, which is really cool. So some essential features about our program is that we are a transitional program, meaning that we are a 2-year program. So once you come into our program, we work with the young person for about 2 years. This is not to say that it's a consecutive 2 years, because we have a lot of young people who either may not be quite ready for treatment or are ready for a few months and then kind of fall back into like not being ready. And so they go out of treatment. So we have a lot of people who come in and out. And so the 2 years can kind of be over a broad spectrum of time, not necessarily consecutively. And that's okay. And we serve a pretty broad range of ages. We can go as young as 12, although that's extremely rare. We have yet to have really anyone enter our program under the age of 15. So we take any referrals under the age of 15 with a pretty critical lens, because usually there's something else going on. That's not to say it's not possible, because it is, but we definitely do look a little bit harder at what else is going on in their world. And then we can take up to 25 and sometimes even up to 27, depending on just what's going on. Statistically, males develop schizophrenia and psychosis earlier than females. And so females, typically we see them developing schizophrenia or primary thought disorder in their like 20s, early 20s to mid 20s. And males we usually see in adolescence. So like late high school age is usually when we see our young males developing a primary thought disorder. We are a community mental health program and we're funded through OHA, which means we are payer blind. So we don't look at insurance, and it doesn't really matter to us if you have insurance or what kind of insurance you have. The only caveat to that is that we do have 2 CCOs in the Valley, which means that there is another program, another EASA program here in the Valley that serves all care, and that's Options. So Options has the all care EASA program. So if we do find out that the student has all care, then we would go ahead and refer them to Options. But I, again, wouldn't worry about that when you're doing a referral. Just go ahead and refer them to us, and then we'll take care of the rest. Don't let that be a barrier to your referral to us, because we'll make sure they get to the right place. And as I mentioned, like way back in the beginning, we're a multidisciplinary team. So we come from a lot of different places, a lot of different educational backgrounds. And honestly, that just really well rounds our services to our young people. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute when I talk about who our team is consists of. And then we are able to provide assessment and diagnosis pretty quickly. So usually we are getting someone in to see a psychiatrist within a week. So that is pretty unheard of in the Valley. And I really love that we're able to do that for our young people. And we are also doing a mental health assessment, and then potentially even some more in-depth assessments and screenings if they're warranted, usually within a week or 2. So we're getting that diagnostic piece started really quickly so that we can really figure out what's going on, what is our treatment going to look like, what are our recommendations. So our EASA team consists of a therapist. Currently that's me, and then we're going to have hopefully another therapist joining our team as they get comfortable and with trainings and all of that kind of stuff. So we provide dual diagnosis treatment, therapy, as well as like the assessment process, all of that kind of stuff. That's what our therapists do. We have a psychiatrist. She is located in Portland, so she's a telepsych, and she meets with our young people, like I said, within a week, and then she can provide medication management as well as some psychiatric evaluations and recommendations for other healthcare needs. And then we have a nurse who supports the psychiatrist who can do some on the ground work, whether that's like getting an EEG scheduled or some like symptom management stuff with the medication, vitals, etc., stuff like that. Our case manager coordinates a lot of different things. She can do supported employment as well as supported education, housing assistance, career stuff, really like anything that the young person is really interested in pursuing, our case manager can help with. So she has that background, especially with supported employment, to help. And that's something that our young people really take advantage of. So that's really cool. And then new to the team this year is our peer support specialist. So we have a young man who actually graduated from our EASA program. So he has been in the depths of it. He has a diagnosis that qualified him for our EASA program. and he graduated and is doing well and now is hired by us to support people who are going through the EASA program now. And so that's something super cool that we are offering. And I love that he can be a person to walk alongside our young people with real lived experience. So the services that we offer, first of all, is community awareness. So we do a lot of these presentations with different community partners, different people of all sorts of backgrounds, churches, schools, yeah, you name it. If you have someone who you work with or you know that could benefit from a presentation like this, feel free to like drop that in the chat or let me know. I'd love to reach out. So the more people who are aware that we exist and the more people who have a knowledge that this is something that young people are going through, the more we can support our young people in the community with the right supports. So absolutely let me know. We also offer that early identification piece. So again, that super young age, we can hop in and we can kind of really do a differential diagnosis of like, is this psychosis? Is this trauma? Is this something else? We have the specialty of being able to do that. We have a small caseload and we have the time to be able to sit down and do some really extensive assessment and screening to be able to look at that and see what's going on. We offer access to occupational therapy, supported employment and education, like I mentioned earlier. And we also kicked off our multifamily groups recently, which is a support group for families who are involved in our program. And so families of young people who are involved get together twice a month to connect with each other and get support from each other, problem solve, and yeah, really build their support network. And then we have done also some recreational groups as well. We've done some social groups to just get people connected. One of the pieces is those negative symptoms of social withdrawal and struggling with not wanting to engage with like some of their, past pleasures and joys. And so, getting them out to bowl or rock climb or go hiking or, whatever. We've done that before as well. To really encourage the social and recreational pieces.
Jocelyn, you have a question in the chat from Shannon about if you would be able to do an educational program for a youth drop-in center and speak with the youth.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be fantastic. I'd love to do more youth presentations because I feel like I talk to a lot of adults and I don't talk to a lot of the youth. So I feel like that would be fantastic.
Right. And in the follow-up email, I'll send the recording as well. So you can share this with whoever you think would be, would like to see it. Yeah, that would be great. Totally in for that. However we can coordinate, let's do it. Also, one of the things I love about EASA is that we engage the youth and their families. So it's not just the client that we're working with, we're also engaging their family. And when I say their family, I mean that in the most broad term, whatever their family looks like. If that to them is their best friend and their aunt, cool, then that's their family. If that means their nuclear family, like, parents, cool. We're just doing whatever their family looks like to them, and we'll pull them into their treatment program and offer supports that way. So I love that we do that and really encourage them to utilize their existing supports. And if they don't have existing supports, then we're going to help them build those. And then lastly, we offer accessible and effective treatment and support. We really want to just pull down all the barriers. We're
payer blind. And one of the things I also love about EASA is that we will drive to you. So if there is, limited access to transportation, I will get in the car and I will drive to wherever you are at. And if I need to meet you at school, I will do that. If I need to meet you at a coffee shop, I will also do that. I will reduce the barriers to getting the treatment as much as I physically can. So that's something that we are also really proactive about is the reduction in barriers. So that brings me to kind of what your role is and how you guys can help in this whole process. And the first thing that I'd like to just remind everyone of is just this lovely quote by Brene Brown, which is what we don't need in the midst of struggles is shame for being human. And I just love this quote because it just, anyone who works with people, which is all of us in this Zoom, this is what we do, right? This is who we are as people. We work with young people who just don't need shame for what they're going through. And that's just a great reminder of what we can, the first thing we can offer is just loving on those people and encouraging them. And you guys can also refer people. You do not have to be a professional to refer people to us. You can actually be a family friend. You can be a teacher. You can be a counselor. You can be really anybody. Anyone can refer to us. So who should you refer? What does that look like? So reminder that these are young people between our age range, so 12 to 25, that are experiencing something new. So this is not a young person who's been experiencing this for the last couple years. That's not going to be someone you would refer. This is something new that's been going on for like 6 months, something like that. So in the last 6 months, maybe you've noticed that they've had trouble speaking or understanding what you're saying, or they've been becoming easily confused or lost. They're having trouble reading or understanding complex sentences. They're having trouble in sports or other activities that used to be easy. They may be having extreme fear for no apparent reason. They also might have incoherent or bizarre writing, or uncharacteristic, bizarre actions, statements, or beliefs. There also may be extreme social withdrawal, decline in appearance or hygiene. There may also be fear that others are trying to hurt them. They may be making statements like, my brain is playing tricks on me. They might have heightened sensitivity to sights, sounds, smells, and touch. And there may be hearing voices or sounds that others don't, or feel like someone is putting thoughts into their brain. Those are all really good examples of people you might want to refer. Additionally, if there's just something strange happening that you can't quite put your finger on, you are more than welcome to consult with us. So if you don't know if this is a referral, if this is referral worthy, you can just give us a call, and we'd be happy to just like chat with you for a while. You don't have to give us any like private health information, so we don't need an ROI. You can just give us some vague information about what's going on with the young person, and I can just give you some recommendations about what I think is going on and whether or not I think a referral is worth it, and then we can go from there. Some other referral guidelines is that they do have to reside in Jackson County to be in our program specifically. But like I mentioned, there is an EASA program in every county of Oregon. So if you are looking to refer someone who, say, lives in Josephine County or Klamath or wherever, there is a program in those counties. One of the other requirements is that the person has not received treatment for a psychotic illness in the last 12 months. This exists because we are a first episode psychotic or psychosis program, meaning if the person has already been diagnosed with schizophrenia for, the last year or two, or bipolar or something like that, then they would likely benefit more from a different program because they've already had a diagnosis. Our program is specifically designed to really be that first interaction, and really help with clarity and diagnostics. So if that person has already gotten those things, then we're really not going to be the program for them. So again, that's just a little caveat to, if you know that they have a diagnosis, you can still reach out to us and we might be able to point you in the right direction for a different program. If you didn't know that, again, not your fault at all. We'd probably find that out and then we'd make the referral ourselves. Another one is that psychotic symptoms are not known to be caused by the chronic effects or temporary effects of substance abuse or a known medical condition. Here's some caveats to this one. Like I mentioned, we live in Oregon where marijuana is extremely prevalent, and we're getting a lot of young people who are using marijuana so heavily, and then they stop using and their symptoms persist. So we are actually taking in probably more people with substance use, specifically with marijuana, and are seeing their symptoms remain. And so we're actually probably seeing, we're probably like using that one more as not rule out, unfortunately, just with what we're noticing. As far as like the medical conditions, this one really relates to like, when we see like if it's being caused by diabetes or like the epilepsy or things like that. But again, we wouldn't expect you guys to know that necessarily. So if you're just noticing something's going on, just reach out to us and we'll do the due diligence for you, and determine that and let you know. And then lastly, the person has experienced a significant decline in academic, vocational, social, or personal functioning. This is important because there are certain circumstances where young people may be experiencing perceptual experiences that aren't bothersome. And it may be more bothersome to the people around them, but it's not bothersome to them. And so we have to be really mindful of like asking the question, like, is this frightening? Is this distressing? Is this scary? If it's not, maybe we need to check ourselves. Is this more bothersome to you? Is this more bothersome to the people around them? And then maybe we need to just consider that before we make a referral. So that is something, yeah, just to consider. And that is kind of all I have for the presentation today, but I want to like open up and have some time for questions. So yeah.